A billionaire's plan to save his mother ended with a woman saving him. Have you ever had a day where the world asked for too much? Where your problems felt like a weight you couldn't remove? That was Meridith Washington. Her old sedan died on a beautiful street in a town where she knew no one. She had 4 warm muffins, student debt, and a fading prayer. She was 1 semester from a better life. Now this. But Meridith had a secret. When life gave her lemons, she baked. She created muffins, so full of love they could soothe any soul. She was headed to Sunnydale Nursing Home, the one place she found purpose. Now imagine a different world, a world of silent boardrooms and immense wealth. This is Stephen Duncan, a billionaire who built an empire to outrun a childhood tragedy. He believed he was in control until he moved his mother into Sunnydale. He was out of his element. The scent of lemon polish unnerved him. He saw his mother there and only saw an ending. He handed his card to a volunteer with a kind smile. "Let me know how she is," he said, already retreating. What happens when a woman with nothing but faith meets a man with everything but hope? When a simple muffin and a quiet prayer begin to crack a billionaire's heart? This is not just a rescue, it's mutual salvation. It's about a man who trusts no one meeting a woman who trusts in God completely. It starts with a fall, a frantic call, and a terrifying realization. He was falling for the one woman who would never be impressed by his money. Hello, and welcome to a new chapter of the Worthington Chronicles. I'm your host, Amelia Worthington, and this is where we escape into epic tales of heart, hope, and healing, where broken paths lead to beautiful destinations. If you're ready to get lost in a story of romance and redemption, you're in the right place. If this journey moves you, please help our community grow by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing from you. Now let's quiet the world for a moment and begin our story. The morning light was soft and golden as it touched the parking lot where Meridith Washington's sedan was parked. She approached the vehicle with the quiet familiarity of someone greeting an old companion. The dark blue paint showed the gentle wear of years, but it still held a clean shine from her careful washing. Her fingers brushed against the driver's side door, feeling the smooth surface warmed by the early sun before she turned the key in the lock. Inside, the car held the comfortable sense of its daily use, the clean fragrance of the air freshener. Swaying from the mirror, the subtle character of the fabric seats that had witnessed so many journeys, and the faint papery smell of textbooks that often traveled in the back. Meridith settled into the driver's seat, the cushion perfectly shaped by years of use. She adjusted the rearview mirror, catching her reflection, dark eyes bright with purpose, hair neatly styled. She offered herself a small, encouraging smile before starting the car. The engine responded with a strong, steady rumble that vibrated comfortably through the vehicle. The sound represented reliability, a vehicle that continued to serve faithfully despite its age. Dashboard lights glowed with soft amber light, each indicator confirming everything was in working order. She gently patted the dashboard in appreciation. "Good morning," she said quietly. "Ready for another day?" She had just returned from Miller's auto shop, where the mechanics knew her as the serious college student who took genuine interest in her vehicle's maintenance. Today's inspection had revealed the need for new brakes, meaning she would need to use some of the savings carefully set aside for her final semester. Yet as she sat in the running car, she focused on the mechanic's reassuring words about her, safety being their priority. Her hands rested comfortably on the steering wheel as she took a deep, calming breath. The faint, clean scents of the auto shop still lingered. The smell of engine oil, the subtle aroma of rubber, the crisp outdoor air that flowed through the garage. These were scents she associated with skilled professionals doing honest work, and they gave her confidence. Financial considerations were familiar territory, and she had learned to navigate them with practical grace. As she drove through the tree-lined streets of her Virginia town, a deep sense of gratitude began to push aside any concerns. The knowledge that she was just 1 semester away from completing her accounting degree filled her with a quiet, steady joy. Every completed assignment, each passed exam, all the late study nights, they were bringing her closer to the stable future she had envisioned since first helping her mother with household budgets. This necessary car repair felt like one of the final steps before reaching her long-pursued goals. The morning sunlight felt generous as it streamed through the windshield, warming her hands on the wheel. She appreciated having the resources to address this need, the result of careful planning and extra shifts at the campus library. There was satisfaction in handling life's unexpected expenses through her own diligence. Rather than taking her usual direct route, Meridith turned toward the older neighborhood she particularly enjoyed. Here, houses sat back from the road on spacious lots, their wide porches and flowering gardens showing generations of care. Tall oak trees formed a continuous canopy overhead, their leaves creating patterns of light and shadow across her windshield and the road below. She drove slowly, wanting to appreciate this peaceful journey. Lowering her window, she welcomed the fresh morning air, now rich with the earthy scent of dew on grass and the sweet fragrance of blooming honeysuckle covering fences and trellises. Neighborhood sounds surrounded her, squirrels chattering in trees, birds singing, leaves rustling in the breeze. She passed the property where retired Mr. Henderson tended his impressive garden, watering can in hand. When she waved, he looked up immediately, his experienced face breaking into a warm, familiar smile as he returned her greeting. These small connections with neighbors always reinforced her sense of community and belonging. Arriving at her apartment building, she felt the comfort of coming home. The modest complex was well maintained, with flowering shrubs along walkways and colorful window boxes. Her ground floor unit welcomed her with soft afternoon light streaming through windows, creating warm pools on wooden floors. The space, though compact, was arranged with care and reflected her personality. Organized bookshelves, a comfortable reading chair by the window, thriving plants on every available surface. Rather than dwelling on the car repair, Meridith felt a surge of positive energy. She recognized this feeling, the creative impulse that often came when she needed perspective and comfort. She knew exactly how to channel this energy into something productive and heartening. There was particular satisfaction in baking, in the methodical process of combining simple ingredients to create something that could nourish both body and spirit. She changed into comfortable clothes and tied on her favorite apron with its cheerful blue and white floral pattern. The fabric, softened by many washings, felt familiar against her clothes. In her efficient kitchen, she began gathering ingredients, arranging them on the counter with practiced ease. Morning sunlight through the kitchen window illuminated flour particles dancing in the air as she began her work. For the apple cinnamon muffins, she selected bananas at perfect ripeness, their yellow skins generously speckled with brown. She peeled them carefully, appreciating their sweet fragrance, then mashed them in her grandmother's ceramic bowl until they formed smooth, fragrant pulp. Next, she measured cool, velvety applesauce, watching it blend into the banana mixture. When she opened the cinnamon, the warm, spicy aroma immediately began creating an atmosphere of cozy comfort and happy anticipation. For the second batch, she carefully measured flour, watching it puff in soft clouds as it poured into her mixing bowl. She added rich, tangy buttermilk in steady streams, observing how it created interesting patterns in the dry ingredients. Then came the blueberries. She poured them from their container, a cascade of dusky blue jewels that released their bright, sweet tart fragrance with every movement. She folded them into the batter with gentle, deliberate strokes, distributing them evenly while preserving their delicate structure. The transformation of plain batter into a marbled combination of purple and cream always pleased her. As the muffins baked, wonderful aromas began drifting through her home, the warm, comforting scent of cinnamon blending with the sweet, fruity perfume of baking berries. The timer ticked softly on the counter, and the oven hummed its steady, reassuring sound. She moved about her kitchen cleaning mixing bowls and utensils, her movements rhythmic and peaceful. The waiting period felt like a quiet interlude filled with growing anticipation. When the timer chimed, she opened the oven door to a wave of fragrant warmth. There they stood, 24 perfectly formed muffins, each with a beautifully rounded golden brown top. Using her grandmother's patterned oven mitts, she carefully transferred the hot muffin tins to wire cooling racks. The muffins seemed to glow in the afternoon light, their surfaces slightly crackled and promising deliciousness within. She waited just long enough before selecting a blueberry muffin. Breaking it open carefully, she watched steam rise, carrying wonderful scents. The berries had burst during baking, creating pockets of deep purple throughout the tender, golden crumb. She took her first bite, closing her eyes to fully appreciate the experience. The slight resistance of the perfectly baked exterior giving way to the soft, moist interior. the burst of sweet tart blueberry flavor, the subtle tang of buttermilk, and the comforting warmth spreading through her. In that moment, surrounded by evidence of her own capable hands and the comforting aromas of her baking, she felt deeply connected to life's good things, simple pleasures, the ability to create something beautiful and nourishing, and the quiet confidence that she could handle whatever challenges came her way. The next morning arrived bright and clear, with birds singing outside Meridith's window as she prepared for her weekly visit to Sunnydale Nursing Home. She carefully arranged the cooled muffins in her large woven basket, lining it with a crisp checkered cloth that smelled faintly of lavender from her linen cupboard. The muffins nestled together in neat rows, their golden tops visible beneath the cloth. She added a small jar of wildflower honey from the local farmer's market, thinking some residents might enjoy extra sweetness with their treats. The drive to Sunnydale was becoming familiar, each turn marked by landmarks she recognized: the massive oak tree with welcoming branches, the little white church with its well-tended garden, the corner house where an elderly man often tended his rose bushes. Today he was there, lifting a hand in greeting as she passed, a gesture she returned with a warm smile. As she pulled into the Sunnydale parking lot, the building's cheerful exterior always lifted her spirits. Flower boxes overflowed with colorful petunias and trailing ivy, and comfortable rocking chairs dotted the wide porch where several residents already sat enjoying morning sunshine. The automatic doors slid open with a soft sound, and she stepped into the familiar entrance hall. The air inside carried Sunnydale's distinctive scent, a clean, welcoming blend of lemon polish, freshly brewed coffee, and the faint floral notes of residents' lotions and perfumes. Soft classical music played in the background, mingling with distant, cheerful voices and the comfortable hum of activity. "Meridith, my dear, is that you?" The voice, though slightly unsteady, was filled with such genuine delight it could brighten any day. Estelle Jennings sat in her favorite armchair by the entrance, a position that let her see all comings and goings. Her silver hair was neatly styled, and she wore a lovely lavender cardigan. Her face, a beautiful network of laugh lines and wisdom, crinkled into a radiant smile when she spotted Meridith approaching with her basket. "It's me, Miss Estelle," Meridith exclaimed, her voice full of affection as she crossed the sunlit lobby. The marble floor gleamed beneath her feet, and large windows let in morning light that danced across comfortable furniture and thriving plants. She knelt beside the chair, the smooth tile firm and cool beneath her knees. "I've brought your favorites today. Apple, cinnamon, and blueberry. They're still fresh from yesterday's baking." Estelle's hands, soft and papery with age, reached out and found Meridith's, giving them a squeeze that communicated deep affection without words. The simple contact felt deeply comforting, a connection that filled important spaces in both their hearts. 5 years earlier, Meridith had started visiting with her friend Maxine to see Maxine's grandmother, but it was Estelle, who had no family of her own, who had quietly claimed a special place in Meridith's life, and whom Meridith had claimed right back. "Let me see what you've made for us today," Estelle said, her eyes bright as Meridith carefully folded back the cloth to reveal the muffins. The older woman leaned forward, breathing deeply. "That cinnamon scent reminds me of my mother's kitchen. She always baked on Saturday mornings, and the whole house would smell wonderful until Sunday church." Meridith helped Estelle select a muffin, then made her way through common areas, greeting residents she knew well. There was Mr. Henderson, no relation to her gardening neighbor, who always asked about her accounting studies and offered business advice from his 50 years running a local hardware store. There was Mrs. Langley, who had been an English teacher and still loved discussing novels Meridith read for literature classes. Each interaction was brief but meaningful, an exchange of smiles and warm words that seemed to linger pleasantly in the air. She was helping Mrs. Langley choose between muffin varieties when one of the activity's coordinators, a cheerful young woman named Sarah, touched her elbow gently. "Meridith, we have a new resident who arrived yesterday, Gloria Duncan. She's having some difficulty adjusting, and I thought a friendly face and one of your wonderful muffins might help. Would you mind visiting her room?" "Of course not," Meridith said immediately, always happy to welcome someone new to Sunnydale. "I'd be glad to meet her." Sarah led her down a hallway decorated with framed photographs of residents in various activities: gardening club meetings, musical performances, holiday celebrations. "She's in room 214, Sarah said, her voice softening. Her son just left after getting her settled, and I think she's feeling lonely. She's lovely, just needs time to find her footing. Meridith nodded understandingly. She remembered how challenging first days could be for new residents, no matter how welcoming the environment. She paused outside room 214, arranging the muffins attractively before knocking gently on the half-open door. "Come in," called a voice that managed to sound both elegant and uncertain. The room felt transitional, with several suitcases still unopened near the closet and cardboard boxes waiting. But personal touches were appearing. A beautiful silver-framed photograph of a smiling couple on the bedside table, a colorful quilt draped over a chair, a small book collection on the windowsill. Gloria Duncan sat in the room's comfortable armchair, her posture straight and proud, but her eyes held a deep sadness that touched Meridith's heart. "Good morning," Meridith said, her voice warm and friendly. "I'm Meridith Washington, one of the volunteers here at Sunnydale. I brought you a welcome gift." She held out the basket. "I baked these muffins yesterday. There's apple cinnamon and blueberry. I thought you might enjoy one with your morning coffee or tea." Gloria's eyes, the same clear blue as the summer sky outside, studied Meridith before a tentative smile touched her lips. "How very kind of you," she said, her voice cultured and soft. "I am Gloria Duncan. It's a pleasure to meet you." She gestured toward the room's other chair. "Would you care to sit for a moment?" As Meridith settled into the chair, they discovered they shared similar values and outlooks. When Gloria mentioned how her faith had sustained her since her husband's passing, a spark of recognition passed between them. It was an immediate connection, a shared understanding that bridged the gap between stranger and friend. "My Harold has been gone nearly 2 years now," Gloria said, her fingers gently tracing the photograph's edge. "We were married for 53 wonderful years. He was my best friend, my partner in everything." Her eyes grew misty, but she maintained her composure. "My son thought this would be a good place for me, but I must admit, it's quite an adjustment." It was then that Meridith became aware of another presence. A man stood near the window, his back to them as he looked at the gardens. He was tall and dressed in a suit that suggested important meetings, the fine wool fabric appearing expensive, even to Meridith's untrained eye. He turned slowly as Gloria spoke, and Meridith found herself looking into intense, intelligent eyes set in a handsome but stern face. His expression was closed, his mouth set in a firm line that suggested he found little to approve of in his surroundings. Gloria noticed the direction of Meridith's gaze. "This is my son, Stephen," she said, her voice gentle, yet firm. "He's not comfortable with places like this, I'm afraid. He means well, but I think seeing me here reminds him of things he'd rather not think about." Meridith's smile didn't falter. She understood the complex emotions surrounding this transition for family members. She turned her warm gaze to the frowning man who looked distinctly out of place in the sunny, cheerful room. "It's very nice to meet you, Stephen. I'm Meridith, one of the volunteers here. Please, don't worry about your mom. She's going to be fine here. The staff is wonderful, and there are many activities and opportunities to make friends. I'll check in on her and make sure she's settling in well." Stephen's scowl softened slightly, as if disarmed by her genuine warmth. He moved with efficient motion, pulling a business card from his inner jacket pocket. The card was heavy, creamy stock, and it felt substantial between Meridith's fingers when he handed it to her. "Thank you," he said, his voice a low, resonant baritone that vibrated in the quiet room. "I appreciate that. If you could let me know how she's doing from time to time." The request, simple as it was, revealed concern beneath his polished exterior. "I'm often in back-to-back meetings, but I would appreciate the reassurance." "It would be my pleasure," Meridith said sincerely, tucking the card safely into her dress pocket, accepting the weight of his trust along with it. She turned back to Gloria with a bright smile. "Now, which muffin would you like to try first? The apple cinnamon is particularly good today." The following week saw Meridith visiting Sunnydale more frequently, her cheerful presence becoming a regular part of Gloria's adjustment. Each visit brought small but meaningful progress in helping Gloria feel at home. Meridith would find her, in different common areas, gradually participating more in the community's life. On Tuesday, she discovered Gloria tentatively joining the weekly bridge game in the sunlit activity room. The smooth plastic cards felt familiar in Gloria's hands, and the soft sounds of cards being played and gentle conversation created a comforting atmosphere. Meridith watched from the doorway as Gloria slowly began interacting with her table partners, her initial reserve giving way to tentative smiles. On Thursday, Meridith arrived during the weekly nail care session. The beauty salon area buzzed with cheerful activity, filled with the clean scent of nail polish remover and the softer fragrance of lotions. Gloria sat having her nails carefully shaped and polished a soft rose color, her hands resting comfortably on the towel-draped table. When she saw Meridith, she held up her hands with a pleased expression. "They're making me feel pampered," she confessed, her eyes showing the first genuine sparkle Meridith had seen. But it was Friday evening that brought the most significant change. Jazz night at Sunnydale transformed the main common area into something special. The furniture had been rearranged to create a dance floor, and a local trio filled the air with lively music. The rich sound of a trumpet, the steady rhythm of a bass, and the melodic notes of a piano created an energy that seemed to lift everyone's spirits. Meridith found Gloria sitting near the dance floor, her feet tapping in time to the music. Marty Peters, a distinguished gentleman with a fondness for colorful bow ties, approached and offered his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Gloria accepted, her face lighting up with a mixture of nervousness and excitement. They moved together to the music, Gloria's initial careful steps gradually becoming more confident. The trouble began during a particularly upbeat number. Emboldened by the music and Marty's encouraging smile, Gloria attempted a spin. Her movement was just a bit too enthusiastic, her coordination slightly off. Her shoe caught on the edge of an area rug, and her balance disappeared completely. There was a collective gasp from nearby residents as Gloria fell to the floor with a heavy thud that silenced the music. Meridith was across the room in moments, kneeling on the patterned carpet beside her. "Gloria, are you hurt?" she asked, her voice calm but concerned. Gloria looked more embarrassed than injured. "My pride is more bruised than anything else," she murmured, even as she winced slightly. A dark purple mark was already beginning to form on her arm where she'd broken her fall. Before Meridith could fully assess the situation, her phone vibrated in her pocket. Stephen's name flashed on the screen. She stepped into the quiet of the hallway to answer. His voice came through strained and tense. "The nursing home just called. They said my mother fell. What's happening over there?" "Stephen, she's all right," Meridith said, keeping her voice even and reassuring. "I was right here when it happened. She was dancing and took a little tumble. She's more embarrassed than hurt, I promise." "I'm coming over right now," he stated, his tone leaving no room for discussion. "This is exactly what I was worried about." When Stephen arrived 20 minutes later, his face was pale beneath its professional composure. His expensive suit seemed out of place in the cheerful environment, and his eyes scanned the room with clear apprehension. He found his mother already, settled in her bed, resting comfortably with an ice pack on her arm. The faint, clean scent of antiseptic cream from the nurse's station lingered in the air around her. Meridith met him at the doorway. "She's just drifted off," she said softly. "The doctor checked her thoroughly. Nothing's broken. She's going to be fine." Stephen's jaw tightened as he looked at his sleeping mother. "I'm moving her out of here tomorrow," he declared. "This isn't working." "I really don't think that's necessary," Meridith countered gently. "Your mother has made real friends here. She was actually enjoying herself tonight before the fall." "Then I'm staying with her until she's completely recovered," he stated firmly. "I don't feel comfortable leaving her here alone." "Then I'll come by each evening too," Meridith offered without hesitation. "We can both keep her company. She should be feeling better in just a few days." For the next week, a new routine established itself. Each evening around 6 o'clock, Meridith would arrive after her classes, often bringing a small treat, sometimes muffins, other times a cup of Gloria's favorite tea from the local shop, or a book she thought Gloria might enjoy. The visits became something they all looked forward to. Meridith would pull a chair close to Gloria's bedside and they would talk and laugh together. They shared stories, Gloria about her life with Harold, Meridith about her accounting studies and her dreams for the future. Sometimes they would gossip lightly about other residents, including Marty Peters, who had sent flowers with a charming note. Each visit ended the same way. Meridith would give Gloria a warm, careful hug, then read aloud from a small, well-loved book of psalms she carried with her. The familiar, comforting words seemed to bring peace to the room, and Gloria would often close her eyes, listening with a soft smile. Stephen watched these interactions from a chair in the corner, saying little but taking everything in. The bridge club gossip held no interest for him, and the scripture readings felt like a language he hadn't spoken in years. He had built his life on concrete achievements and measurable results. These moments of simple human connection were foreign territory. Yet despite himself, he found his tense shoulders relaxing as the evenings progressed. He began to notice the way his mother's face lit up when Meridith arrived, the genuine care in Meridith's actions, the gentle rhythm of their conversations. There was a peace in the room when Meridith was there that he couldn't explain, but couldn't deny either. One evening, as Meridith was gathering her things to leave, Stephen followed her out into the hallway. The corridor was quiet at this hour, with only the soft sounds of evening routines continuing in distant rooms. "Thank you," he said, his voice quieter and more sincere than she'd heard it before. He stood with his hands in his pockets, the fine wool of his trousers rustling softly. "For everything you're doing for my mother, it means more than I can properly express." Meridith turned, her smile as natural and warm as always. "It's truly my pleasure, Stephen," she said simply. "I care about your mother. She's become very special to me." He nodded, his gaze dropping to the polished floor for a moment before meeting hers again. "I know I probably seem overly concerned about all this," he began, a new openness in his tone. "It's just that after my father passed, I can't bear the thought of anything happening to her." "I understand completely," Meridith said, her eyes full of empathy. "But she's stronger than you might think, and she's happy here. That counts for so much." Stephen let out a long breath, as if releasing something he'd been holding for a long time. "You're right," he admitted. "I can see that when you're with her. You have a way of, I don't know, making everything feel like it's going to be all right." Meredith's smile softened. "That's kind of you to say, but it's your mother who's doing the hard work of building a new life here. I'm just fortunate to be along for the journey." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Meridith glanced at her watch. "I should be going," she said. "I'll see you both tomorrow evening." Stephen nodded. "We'll look forward to it." He watched her walk down the long hallway, noticing the confident way she carried herself, the gentle sway of her simple dress, the way she paused to greet a passing staff member with genuine warmth. There was something about her presence that lingered in the air even after she had turned the corner and disappeared from view. The evening after Meredith's conversation with Stephen in the hallway marked the beginning of a subtle but important shift. When she arrived the next day, she found Stephen already there, but instead of sitting stiffly in the corner chair, he had pulled his chair closer to his mother's bedside. He was listening as Gloria recounted her day, how she'd enjoyed the morning stretching class, the chicken salad she'd had for lunch, and the interesting conversation she'd shared with Mrs. Gable during afternoon tea. Meridith noticed the change immediately. Stephen's posture was more relaxed, his attention fully focused on his mother rather than divided between her and his phone. When Meridith entered, he looked up and offered what she realized was his first genuine, unguarded smile. It transformed his entire face, making him look younger and far more approachable. "Meridith," Gloria said warmly, "Stephen was just telling me about a project he's working on. It sounds quite important." "It's just another corporate acquisition," Stephen said with a dismissive wave, but his eyes remained engaged. "Nothing as interesting as your bridge tournament this afternoon." Meridith set down the small container she was carrying. "I brought some of that honey you liked," she told Gloria. "And I thought we might try some chamomile tea this evening instead of the usual peppermint." As she prepared the tea at the small counter in the room, Stephen came to stand nearby. "Can I help with anything?" he offered. "The cups are in that cabinet," Meridith said, surprised but pleased by his offer. "If you wouldn't mind getting them down." They worked together quietly for a few moments, the simple domesticity of the task creating an unexpected sense of companionship. Stephen handled the delicate china with careful respect, placing 3 cups on the tray Meridith had brought. "Mother was telling me how you've been helping her connect with some of the other residents," Stephen said as he watched Meridith pour the steaming water. She mentioned you introduced her to a book club that meets on Wednesdays. Mrs. Langley leads it, Meridith explained. She was an English professor for 40 years. Your mother loves reading, and I thought she might enjoy it. Stephen nodded slowly. She's always had a book nearby. My father used to say their home wasn't a house. It was a library with a kitchen attached. The memory made him smile, but there was sadness in it too. They carried the tea tray to Gloria's bedside, and the three of them spent the next hour in easy conversation. Stephen spoke more about his childhood, about his parents' long and happy marriage, about the values they had instilled in him. Meridith listened, occasionally asking questions that showed her genuine interest. Gloria watched the exchange with quiet satisfaction, her eyes moving between her son and the young woman who had brought such positive change to both their lives. When Meridith prepared to leave, Stephen walked her out to the parking lot. The evening. Air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of recently cut grass and the distant smell of rain approaching. Thank you, Stephen said as they reached her car. Not just for tonight, but for helping me remember how to talk to my mother. Really talk to her, I mean. Meridith smiled, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the parking lot lights. She's wonderful company. I always leave here feeling better than when I arrived. Stephen hesitated for a moment as if weighing his words. Would you? If you have time? Would you like to get coffee sometime? So we could talk without my mother dozing off midway through sentences? The question surprised them both. Meridith could see the uncertainty in his eyes, so different from the confident businessman she'd first met. I'd like that, she said. I'm free most afternoons after 2. Tomorrow? He asked quickly, then seemed to catch himself. If that's not too soon. Tomorrow works perfectly, she assured him. The coffee meeting the next day stretched into 2 hours of easy, flowing conversation. They met at a small cafe near the campus, where the air was rich with the scent of roasted coffee beans, and the sound of quiet jazz filled the space between their words. Stephen spoke about his work, but not in the brusque, business-focused way he had before. He talked about the responsibility he felt toward his employees, the satisfaction of building something that provided jobs and stability for families, the pressure of living up to his father's legacy. In turn, Meridith shared her own story, her determination to get her degree, the sacrifices she'd made, her dreams of not just a job, but a career where she could make a genuine difference. She spoke of her volunteer work not as an obligation, but as a source of joy, and of the residents at Sunnydale who had become like extended family. They discovered unexpected common ground, a shared love of old movies, a similar sense of humor, compatible values despite their very different life experiences. When they finally left the cafe, both were surprised by how quickly the time had passed and how naturally the conversation had flowed. Over the following weeks, these meetings became a regular occurrence. Sometimes they were brief coffee breaks between Stephen's meetings and Meridith's classes. Other times they were longer conversations over simple dinners. With each meeting, the initial connection deepened into genuine friendship, and then into something more meaningful. Stephen found himself looking forward to their time together with an anticipation he hadn't felt in years. He noticed the way Meridith's eyes lit up when she talked about accounting concepts she found particularly elegant, the graceful way she used her hands when speaking, the quiet strength that underpinned her gentle demeanor. He admired her practical intelligence, her compassion, her unwavering optimism. For Meridith, Stephen revealed layers she hadn't initially seen: his dry wit, his unexpected knowledge of literature, the deep sense of responsibility that drove him, the vulnerability he usually kept hidden beneath his professional exterior. She saw the good man he was at his core, the man his mother had always described with such pride. One evening, as they sat in Gloria's room watching her sleep peacefully, Stephen turned to Meridith. I never thought I'd say this about a place like this, he said quietly, but coming here has become the best part of my day. Meridith smiled, understanding he wasn't just talking about visiting his mother. For me too, she said simply. In that quiet moment, with the soft sounds of the nursing home around them and Gloria sleeping contentedly nearby, something unspoken passed between them. an acknowledgement of the connection that had grown, the friendship that had deepened, and the new possibilities that lay ahead. The comfortable rhythm of their new routine continued for several weeks. Meridith's car, however, began showing more serious signs of trouble. The engine would occasionally stall at stoplights, and a new, worrying rattle had developed somewhere beneath the chassis. Each time Meridith visited Sunnydale, Stephen would listen carefully to the car's sounds as she arrived and departed, his forehead creased with concern. One Thursday evening, the inevitable happened. As Meridith prepared to leave Sunnydale, her car refused to start. The engine turned over with a tired, grinding sound, then fell completely silent. She tried several more times, but the only response was a series of discouraging clicks. Stephen, who had been saying goodbye to his mother, heard the struggle from the entrance. He walked out to the parking lot and found Meridith sitting in her car, her hands still on the steering wheel, taking a deep breath. "Trouble?" he asked, though the answer was obvious. "It's finally given up on me," she said with a resigned smile. "I knew this was coming, but the timing could be better." "Let me give you a ride home," Stephen offered immediately. "We can have someone look at your car tomorrow." On the drive to her apartment, Meridith was quiet, mentally calculating how she would manage the repair costs alongside her other expenses. Stephen glanced at her occasionally, noting the thoughtful expression on her face. "The repair might be more than the car is worth," she said finally. "I've been preparing for this, but it's still a significant expense." Stephen nodded, his hands resting comfortably on the steering wheel of his own well-maintained vehicle. "I understand," he said simply, though the financial concern she was facing was something he hadn't experienced in many years. The next day, while Meridith was arranging for a tow truck, Stephen found himself at a local car dealership. He walked through rows of shiny new vehicles, their clean surfaces reflecting the morning sun. The air smelled of new upholstery and detailed interiors. He wasn't looking for anything flashy or expensive. He wanted something reliable, safe, and practical. He settled on a modest sedan in a deep blue color. It had an excellent safety rating, good fuel efficiency, and came with a comprehensive warranty. As he completed the paperwork, he thought about how to handle the situation. He knew Meridith would never accept such an expensive gift directly from him. Her independence and pride were qualities he admired, even as they presented a challenge now. An idea formed in his mind. He arranged for the car to be delivered to Sunnydale with specific instructions for the staff. Then he wrote a simple note. "This is a gift from someone who has seen the light you bring to others. Please accept it in the spirit it's given." When Meridith arrived at Sunnydale the following Monday, the director asked to see her in her office. Puzzled, Meridith followed her, wondering if there was some issue with her volunteer work. "There's been a donation made in your name," the director explained, handing her a set of keys. "A vehicle has been provided for your use in recognition of your service to our community." Meridith stared at the keys in her hand, then out the window where a new blue sedan was parked in the visitor's spot. "I don't understand," she said. "Who would do this?" "The donor wished to remain anonymous," the director said with a knowing smile. "They simply asked that you continue your wonderful work here." Later that day, when Stephen visited his mother, he found Meridith in her room still looking slightly stunned. "Someone gave me a car," she told him, her voice filled with disbelief. "A brand new car. The director said it was an anonymous donation because of my volunteer work." Stephen maintained a carefully neutral expression. "That's wonderful news," he said. "You certainly deserve it after all you do for everyone here." Gloria watched the exchange with quiet amusement, her eyes moving from her son's carefully controlled face to Meridith's bewildered one. She said nothing, but a small, knowing smile played on her lips. Over the next week, Meridith tried to learn the identity of her benefactor, but the nursing home staff maintained their discretion. Slowly, she began to accept the gift, though she still shook her head in wonder each time she approached the reliable new vehicle. The car changed her daily life in small but significant ways. No more worrying about whether the engine would start in the morning. No more budgeting for the next inevitable repair. The freedom and security it provided allowed her to focus more energy on her studies and her volunteer work. One evening, as she and Stephen walked through the gardens at Sunnydale, she mentioned the car again. I still can't believe someone would do something so generous, she said. I wish I could thank them properly. Sometimes, Stephen said carefully, the greatest satisfaction comes from giving without expectation of thanks. The person who did this likely knows how much you help others and wanted to help you in return. Meridith looked at him, her head tilted slightly. You know, don't you? She asked softly. Stephen met her gaze, his expression unreadable for a moment, before softening. What makes you think that? The way you didn't seem surprised when I told you, she said, and the way you're talking about it now. He didn't confirm or deny, but his silence was answer enough. Meridith reached out and touched his arm gently. Thank you, she said. It was too much, but thank you. You're welcome, he said quietly. And before you say anything about it being too generous, please know that seeing the difference it's made for you has brought me more happiness than you can imagine. They continued their walk as the evening settled around them, the understanding between them deepening into something even more meaningful than before. The revelation about the car created a subtle but important shift in their relationship, where there had been growing friendship and mutual respect. There was now a deeper layer of trust and understanding. Meridith had initially worried that accepting such a significant gift might create an imbalance between them, but Stephen's quiet humility in the matter, his clear desire for no recognition or debt, dissolved those concerns. Their coffee meetings and shared visits to Sunnydale continued, but the conversations took on greater depth and vulnerability. One afternoon, sitting in their usual cafe corner with rain tracing patterns on the windows, Stephen found himself speaking about aspects of his life he rarely shared with anyone. My father was the kind of man who believed in building things that lasted, he said, cradling his coffee mug. Not just businesses, but relationships, traditions, a good name. He paused, watching the steam rise from his cup. When he passed away so suddenly, I felt this tremendous pressure to not just maintain what he'd built, but to expand it, as if growing the company would somehow keep his legacy alive. Meridith listened quietly, her attention fully focused on him. That sounds like a heavy burden for anyone to carry alone. It was, he admitted. And in trying to be everything he was, I think I lost sight of who I wanted to be. He looked up, meeting her eyes. Coming here, spending time with my mother, getting to know you, it's reminded me of things that matter more than quarterly reports and acquisition targets. The rain continued its gentle rhythm against the windows as they sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Meridith thought about how different this version of Stephen was from the tense, frowning man she'd first encountered at Sunnydale. Your mother talks about your father often, she said softly. She always speaks of the life they built together, not the business he built. Stephen nodded slowly. She's been trying to tell me that for years. I suppose I wasn't ready to hear it until now. At Sunnydale, Gloria watched the evolution of their relationship with quiet joy. She saw the way her son's shoulders had lost their permanent tension, the way he laughed more readily, the way he listened with genuine interest when Meridith spoke, about her accounting classes or shared stories about other residents. One evening, as Meridith was reading aloud from a book of poetry Gloria particularly enjoyed, Stephen arrived later than usual, still dressed in his business attire, but looking more relaxed than he would have in those clothes months before. Don't stop on my account, he said softly as he took his usual seat. Meridith continued reading, her voice calm and melodic. Stephen found himself watching her rather than listening to the words, admiring the way her expression changed with the rhythm of the poetry, the gentle confidence in her delivery, the warmth that seemed to radiate from her. After Meridith left, that evening Gloria patted the space on the bed beside her. Sit with me for a moment, Stephen. He complied, taking her hand in his. Her skin felt thin and delicate, but her grip was firm. You look happy, she observed, her eyes studying his face. Really happy. I haven't seen you look like this since before your father passed. Stephen smiled. I feel happy, Mom. In a way I'd almost forgotten was possible. Gloria's eyes twinkled. It's good to see. And Meridith, she's very special. Yes, he said simply. She is. The following week brought Meridith's final exams, and her visits to Sunnydale became less frequent as she dedicated herself to studying. Stephen made sure to visit his mother daily during this time, often bringing updates about Meridith's progress. "She's determined to finish strong," he told Gloria one afternoon. "I offered to help her study, but she insisted she needed to do it on her own." "Of course she did," Gloria said with approval. "That young woman has more strength and determination than anyone I've ever known." When Meridith emerged from her last exam, exhausted but triumphant, she found Stephen waiting outside the examination hall with a single yellow rose. "I thought you might need this," he said, handing it to her. "And I know a place that serves excellent celebratory pie." Over slices of warm apple pie and coffee, Meridith described the challenging exam questions and her confidence that she'd performed well. Stephen listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions and celebrating her success as if it were his own. "You know," he said as they finished their dessert, "watching you pursue your goals with such focus and determination has been inspiring. It's reminded me that success isn't just about wealth or business achievements." Meridith smiled, touched by his words. "Having your support has meant more than I can say. These last few weeks, they've been challenging, but knowing I had people cheering for me made all the difference." As they walked back to her apartment, the evening air soft around them, Stephen reached for her hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they'd been made to fit together. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly, "for everything you've accomplished and for the person you are." In that moment, surrounded by the gentle sounds of the evening and the warmth of his hand in hers, Meridith felt a sense of rightness, of belonging, that went deeper than any academic achievement ever could. With her exams completed, Meridith's schedule opened up, allowing for more frequent visits to Sunnydale and more time with Stephen. The summer days grew longer and warmer, and the gardens at the nursing home burst into vibrant color. It became their habit to walk through these gardens in the evenings, talking as the sun set. One such evening, as they paused by a particularly beautiful rose arbor, Stephen turned to Meridith with a serious expression. "These past months have been transformative for me," he began, his voice unusually tentative. "Getting to know you, seeing the world through your eyes, it's changed how I see everything." Meridith smiled, reaching to touch a nearby rose blossom. "You've changed quite a bit from the man who scowled at me in your mother's room." "I was scared. Then," he admitted, "scared of losing my mother, scared of facing my own mortality, scared of anything I couldn't control with a spreadsheet or a business decision." He took her hand. "You've shown me that some of the best things in life aren't about control, but about connection." They continued walking as fireflies began to blink in the gathering dusk. The air carried the rich scent of evening blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. "My mother asked me something interesting yesterday," Stephen said after a comfortable silence. "She asked when I was going to stop dawdling and make an honest woman of you." Meridith laughed, a warm, musical sound in the quiet evening. "She's been dropping hints to me, too. Yesterday she showed me her wedding album and told me all about how your father proposed." Stephen stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "And what would you say?" he asked, his voice suddenly serious. "If I told you my mother might be onto something?" Meridith's smile softened. "I'd say that sounds like a conversation worth having." The following week, Stephen asked Meridith to have dinner with him at a quiet restaurant overlooking the river. The setting was elegant, but comfortable, with soft lighting and the gentle sound of water moving past outside. Throughout dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Her plans now that she had her degree, his thoughts about scaling back, his work hours, their shared hope that Gloria would continue to thrive at Sunnydale. But beneath the light conversation, there was a current of something more significant, something waiting to be said. As dessert arrived, a shared slice of rich chocolate cake, Stephen reached into his pocket. Instead of a ring box, he pulled out a simple, worn silver key. "This is the key to my home," he said, placing it on the table between them. "But what I'm really offering is the key to my life. To our life, if you'll have it." Meridith looked from the key to his face, her eyes bright with emotion. "Stephen, I love you, Meridith," he said, his voice steady and sure. I love your strength, your kindness, your unwavering spirit. I love the way you see the good in everyone, the way you've brought light back into my life. I want to build a future with you, a real partnership, a family, a life filled with the kind of love and purpose you've shown me is possible. Tears glistened in Meridith's eyes as she reached across the table to take his hand. I love you too, she said, her voice filled with emotion. These past months with you have been the happiest of my life. Yes, I want that future with you. Yes to it all. The drive back to Sunnydale was filled with a joyful, almost giddy energy. They found Gloria still awake, reading in her chair by the window. Well, she asked, looking from one beaming face to the other. Do I need to start planning a wedding, or shall I continue dropping hints? Stephen laughed, pulling Meridith close. You can stop with the hints, Mom. We have some news. As they shared their happiness with Gloria, the room seemed to fill with a warmth that had nothing to do with the summer night outside. In that moment, surrounded by love and possibility, all the challenges and struggles that had brought them to this point felt like necessary steps on a journey that had led them exactly where they were meant to be. And so, dear listener, we gently close this chapter of the Worthington Chronicles. If this tale of faith and a love that heals all wounds has touched your spirit, I, Amelia Worthington, would be honored if you'd join our growing community of story lovers. Please help us continue our journey by liking this video, subscribing to the Worthington Chronicles, and ringing the bell so you're here for our next adventure into the heart. We cherish our listeners. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, may your life be filled with grace, hope, and the most beautiful of endings.